Okay, so the next step is going to be creating little branches of leaves to duplicate around our object. Now what I want to show you how to do is I want to show you how to map a branch to a flat polygon plane, add a little bit of curvature and duplicate that around as opposed to doing individual leaves. So let me just show you what I mean. Um, so what I've got here is I've got a texture of a branch with a bunch of leaves on it, and I've got these individual leaves. Now, if we just did individual leaves with one polygon per leaf, or ridiculous as it sounds, actually model each leaf, we could blow out our polygon count here to just an insane level. And unless this tree is the only thing in your scene, and unless it is like a feature piece where you need to physically see these little leaves, as in like, I don't know, maybe you've got little fairies or sprites or something hanging out in the branches having a conversation about politics. Ooh, I just found a branch hanging out doing crazy shit. Okay, let's tuck that back in. So unless you've got, political discourse of fake creatures up here, you don't actually need to have those leaves modeled in any great detail. So by doing something like using one of these branches where there's tons of leaves on it, we can basically have, say, maybe just 6 or 9 quads per branch, and then duplicate that around, and it becomes suddenly a much more um, affordable model. Affordable being that you can have quite a few of them in your scene and not worry about it affecting frames per second or in your game or render time for your film. Okay, so let's open up Photoshop and I'll show you how I go about creating sort of this stylized cartoony branch texture using a photograph and then manipulating it. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and this is my semi-realistic branch I found online. Now, thing about finding textures online, if you're going to do any commercial work, you need to own the textures you're using. If you're doing school, academic, or just experimentation in your own time, it's so long as you modify stuff heavily, it's really not that big of a deal. Um, Copyright comes into play when you publish, not when it's sitting on your computer helping you learn. Okay, so what we'd like to do now, there's a couple things we need to do. In the version I showed you before, you see all this black stuff. So what we want here is we want this to have no background. We want it to come in where everything that's currently black in this is going to be transparent in Maya. So we need to, back in Photoshop, we need to get rid of the background. And the other thing we need to do is we need to saturate, so you can see that the leaves in the original are quite dull and dark, whereas the ones in my modified version here are quite bright and vibrant. So we need to saturate our leaves. And then we need to do the, achieve this sort of almost painted, this almost painted effect on each of our leaves. So it's a few steps. I'll take you through each of them. To start with, let's get rid of that background. Okay, so to get rid of the background, we're going to need to make sure that this background layer is not locked. So to unlock this background layer, all you need to do is double click on it. And this new layer window comes up and asks if you want to change it to layer 0. And I do. So now that that's unlocked, we can actually work with it. And what I'm going to use to get rid of this white is something called the Magic Wand tool, which is just here. It's about the 4th icon down in your standard tools palette. If for whatever reason you've lost this tools palette, you can change your workspace to Photoshop Essentials and you will get that tools palette back. If you can't see the Magic Wand tool because it's currently the Quick Select tool, you just right click on it and go Magic Wand. So I'm going to right click on that, go magic wand, and all I'm going to do is just select the white. Let's click on it. And what it's done is it's gone through and it's selected everything else that it touches that's white. I'm just going to hit delete. Just gonna kill it, make it go away. And I'm gonna go through and repeat that for each of these little pools of white in here. Just pop in, keep selecting all these little pockets of white, and killing them, blowing them away. Wait, whoop, just got some yellow there. I'm going to pause the video, finish this up, and take you to the next step. Okay, so I've gotten rid of all the white space on this image, and you could see with the checker box in the background, this now has transparency around it. The next step is I just kind of want to make sure I don't have any lingering white pixels just kind of hanging out. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to select my image here. Change the selection so that it sits about like a pixel in, and then delete anything that's just like a straggler. So in order to select just the shape, since we've gotten rid of the background, it's significantly easier. All I have to do is hover my mouse over the little image preview on my layer here, hold down Control, and then just left click, and you'll see that that has now a selection box around everything about my little object there. So two things. First, I'm going to invert the selection, because if I hit delete right now, it would just delete my image. So I'll go select and inverse. The second one I'm going to do is I'm going to expand that selection so that it expands into my image slightly. So I'm going to go select, modify, expand, and we're going to expand just by 2 pixels. And oh, I can already see that's going to cause some problems. So if I hit delete, heh, that looks really unattractive. Okay, let's just expand by 1 pixel and see what happens. It could be that my image is so small, even that much is too much. Yeah, I think it will be. Oof, I've lost too much there. Okay, alright. I think we're actually going to be okay. One thing you can do, so what we'll do is we'll just create a little dummy layer here. So we'll just drop this layer beneath layer 0 and fill it with black. And yeah, I can go around and see if there's any unattractive white pixels, and there are. I'm not liking the look of that at all. I've also found a couple of pools of white that I missed on my earlier trip around deleting things. So not a bad technique to be able to actually like have that black background ready to go while you are actually deleting stuff. Alright, I'm pretty sure that once we get that painterly effect, we'll lose some of these white outlines. So let's do that now. Okay, step right before we do the painterly effect is we are going to saturate these leaves. So we're going to make them a lot more vibrant. Make sure you have the layer selected that you actually want to saturate, and go up to Image, Adjustments, and Hue Saturation. So if I click on that, I now get this window that allows me to do quite a bit of fun stuff with this. And so if I just bump up the saturation on that, nothing happens because I have a selection on there. If you're ever using a tool and nothing's happening at all, it's probably because you've got a little selection going on. And you can quickly get rid of selection just by coming back up to this rectangular selection option, clicking on that, and then you just sort of tap on the screen, and that will get rid of it. Don't dragging your selection box, just tap. Okay, so let's try that again. we've got the layer selected, image, adjustments, and hue saturation. And we'll just bump up the saturation. Oi, there we go. I want some nice vibrant colors. I don't want crazy town. That's a bit too red. Just vibrant. Hue, we're not going to play with it now, but play with it in the future, because with hue you can well, change the overall hue color mix of your texture, and that can be a lot of fun, and it's also a great way to quickly get a bunch of different kinds of textures. Okay, we're saturated. Last thing I want to do now is go up to filter, blur. I'm going to use something called smart blur. Smart blur is going to hold the outside edge of my shape, which I'll just zoom in there. So it's going to hold the outside edge, but then it's going to blur the inside in a really interesting way. And that's what gives it its almost painterly effect. Changing my quality to high. Mode is normal, that's fine. And I'm just going to increase my threshold and reduce my radius there. And if I hit OK, you'll see it gives it this really quick, almost automatic painted effect, which is it's just so cool. So smart blur, very effective way to quickly make changes. Alright, and one of the last things we're gonna do here is we'll just turn off, and we'll actually just delete that black layer. We've got ourselves a branch texture. So I'm going to save that into the source images folder of my project folder. I'm going to save that as a PNG because I do need the alpha channel. And I will just save it as a new version of that branch. Okay, let's pop back to Maya and start duplicating that around.